Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello dear learners, welcome to the session of Managing Equality and Diversity. In this session, we will have a discussion on the topic Perception and Individual Decision Making. I am Dr. Supriya Jain, working as an Associate Professor at GLA University, Mathura. So let us discuss the topic which we are going to have our understanding on today. The very first we will start with the perception. Thereafter, we will talk about person's perception, how we are making judgments about others. Then we will have an understanding of linkage between perception and individual decision making in organization, and the influence on decision making, individual difference and organizational constraint. So these are the topics which we are going to have our discussion on in today's session. Let us look at the learning objective. By the end of this session, you will be able to explain the factors that influence perception. Thereafter, you will be able to have the understanding of attribution theory. Explain the link between perception and decision making. By the end, you will be able to contrast the rational decision making model with bounded rationality as well as intuition. And finally, you will be able to explain how individual differences and organization constraint affect decision making. So we are going to begin with the understanding of perception. What is perception? When we generally hear this term, what comes to our mind is perception refers to our understanding of the things. And before we know more about perception, I would like to start with the quote, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So it means perception is more based on the individual's personality, their attitude towards things, right? How they are perceiving things, what kind of interpretation they are drawing, and accordingly they are going to act on it. So a process by which individual organizes and interpret their sensory impression to give meaning to their environment. As we all know, a lot of things are happening around us, right? So in the environment, we are continuously receiving something or the other through our sensory organs, right? We hear so many things, we see so many things, right? We feel lot of, things in the environment. So what are we understanding? Based on our understanding, our actions will be defined. So people behavior and decision are based on their perception of what reality is, not on reality itself. This is important for you to understand, right? So why are we talking about perception here from the organization perspective? Reason being, in organization lot of things are happening, but definitely the behavior of an employee will be based on their understanding of the thing. So it becomes very important for an organizational point of view to make them understand the right things. Sometimes what happen, they understand the things which are not there in reality, right? And rather they should understand those things which we actually want them to understand. So perceptions sometimes lead to the wrong actions and wrong behavior. So it becomes important for us to know how people behave based on their perception. So in other words, we can say our perception becomes the reality from which we act, right? So it is all with the perception of your things. What are you going to perceive? Accordingly, your actions will be defined. So in this, first we are going to understand the process of perception. So what have we done here is, the process has been divided into three different stages. The very first is called as perceptual input, right? So whatever the stimuli we take out from the environment would be the input. And here we need to understand one more important thing, that we don't take everything from the environment, right? So like I said, lot of things are taking place in the environment. We continuously, have lot of things taking place, but it is very difficult for us to take up all the stimuli from the environment. We are very, very selective in understanding the things. We are very selective in taking the stimuli from the environment, depending upon again what we want to see, what we want to hear. Okay, so stimuli can be related to an object, it can be related to an event, it can be about any person, right. So different sort of stimuli we take from the environment as an input, which we are considering as an perceptual input. So as soon as we are taking these input, then comes the second step, which is being considered under perceptual throughput. So once you are getting the stimuli, then comes the process of throughput, where we are going to receive it, where we are going to select it, and then we will be organizing those things, because it is the understanding of those things which is going to define our action. So organizing and interpretations are the important aspect of throughput process, where once we have received and selected any stimuli from the environment, we are going to organize it in our mind, we are going to interpret it, and the basis on which we have organized and interpreted those stimuli is finally going to define our perceptual output in terms of our action, which is going to be reflective through our attitudes, through our opinion, through our feelings, as well as our value system. So one thing here you would be able to relate very well in our previous sessions, where we have talked about the attitude, we have talked about the personality of an individual, their emotions as well as their mood is all the outcome of the perception which you are going to take from the environment. How you have organized those things, what is the basis on which you have done your interpretation, right. So right understanding of the things will actually be the game changer of an individual, which is going to create an impact in their behavior. Okay. If you look it further, we have here the factors that influences the perception. So this is something which we are going to understand very clearly, and what is the impact of these factors on the perception of an individual. So here the perception is basically being affected by three aspects which we will be discussing. The very first factors from the perspective of a perceiver, like the individual who is perceiving those aspects from the environment. The other is the situation. As we know, the different situation, maybe sometimes at different point of time the perceiver is going to have different effect of those kind of stimuli which we are taking from the environment, and the very important one is the target. So let us start with the very first, where we are going to talk from the perceiver's point of view. So here our attitude, see these things are very, very interrelated. Just now I said the attitude, behavior, the belief of a person, the personality of an individual is all the outcome of the perception which we are having. And again we are saying that whatever we are perceiving from the environment is also based on our personality, it is also based on our belief system, it is also based on our attitude towards the thing. So the factors which are going to affect the perceiver for understanding the environment is the attitude of an individual, whether the person attitude towards the object or the event or the place is positive or negative. What are the motives of those individuals, right? So generally our motive defines our action, right? How are we going to understand those things, how we are interpreting those things, what kind of organizing take place in our mind is based on our motives, our interest area. Like I said, lot of things are happening, like we are not collecting all the information, we generally draw our interest towards the things which are of our interest, right, which are of our liking, right. So interest of an individual will also plays a very significant role in collecting the information from the environment. Our experience definitely matters a lot, right. So as in when we are learning things, our perception of the things becomes better, right. Maybe when we have little knowledge of something, our perception will be different, but when we have detailed understanding of something, our knowledge or information will make our understanding of the things will be better. And that is why we say through learning we can help the individuals to have better understanding of the thing, and through this we can change their perception, and definitely through the change of their perception we can bring the change in their behavior. and expectations of the individual will also have a considerable impact. Like what are your expectations, what do you give the understanding to that situation. Sometimes our expectations are very higher, so accordingly when our expectations are higher, we also perceive things in that manner. Suppose as an interviewer, right, and you are going through the resume of that individual, where you see the individual is throughout topper, right, and score very high marks. So during the interview, your expectations become higher, right. Whenever you would be answering some question, you would be expecting that you would be getting very good reply from the person, because this person is throughout very having very good grades, right. But it might not happen sometimes, right. So there could be possibility, what are our expectations, we would be getting the results as per our expectations, and sometime it is also possible that we make our expectations very high, but we are not getting the results accordingly. Now talking about the factors in situation, so here we have 3 points we will be discussing on the time, right. So time is also a consideration of the moment. Like in our previous session, we have also related time with the moods and emotions. So all time of a day, our mood is not same, right. So usually some people are morning, they prefer to be active in the morning time of a day, or some people are feeling charged in the evening, or in the later hours of the day. So depending upon the time frame also, your perception of things become different, okay. Work setting you are into, okay, what kind of work you are doing, or what kind of roles and responsibilities you are into will also have a significant impact on the situations or the things you would be picking up from the environment, and as well as your social settings, right. Your group defines your personality, right. Whatever the kind of people you are interacting with, whatever the things you are getting from the people nearby you, will also play a significant impact on the situations, on the understanding of your things in the environment. And finally, we move out to the factors in the target, where we have lot of points which will draw our more attention towards it. Let us have a discussion on all these targets in detail. The very first external factor in the perceptual selectivity is the size, right. Why are we considering this size as an important aspect? Because we all know these things very well, that bigger things draws more of our attention, right. So it is true for human nature that if anything is bigger in size, then we could be able to see that thing very early as compared to the things which are smaller in size. Like for example, in newspaper, right, headings are written in bold and bigger fonts. Why it has been done so? Because they want our attention to draw towards it, right. So generally if you see the advertisement, the hoardings, right, on the roads when you pass it by, so definitely to draw more attention of a customer towards them, they want to increase, they want to draw the attention of the customer towards it. So generally they keep the font size bigger towards it, okay. So this is why it has been said what kind of aspects you would be selecting. So here what we are discussing are perceptual selectivity, okay. Like I said, not everything we would be drawing our attention towards. So on what basis are we drawing our attention? The very first in it is the size. Like I said, bigger size have higher probability to get attracted. And it's not always that the bigger size are getting attracted. In contrast to that, sometimes or many times rather, miniatures, right, such as the replica of the buildings, like books, or also been get noticed by the people for the things which are bigger in size, and now you are able to see the miniature of those things will also draw your attention. So size matter. In certain cases the bigger size of the font will draw our attention, and in certain cases miniatures also draw the attention because they are more attractive, and people like to see the miniatures of the buildings or the monuments to see more on it, right. Then the another important factor here is the intensity, right. So intensity refers to the deep understanding of the things. Like for example, right, you are passing by from somewhere and people are talking slowly to each other, you might not be able to draw your attention towards it. But if some kind of a loud noise comes out, right, So you definitely will be looking around what is happening, from where this noise comes from, right. So intensity refers to the intense aspect of anything, like like an order, a very you can say strong order from a person. If a person is entering into a room, right, and the order is it's just normal, then it might not draw your attention. But if a person is carrying a very strong order, then definitely it will draw your attention, and you would be understanding some or the other thing based on that aspect. Okay, so intensity principle of attention setting, that the higher the intensity of the external stimulus, it's more likely to be perceived. It will draw your attention towards it for sure. Then the repetition, and this is the principle which is usually being followed by the advertising agency. So things which comes on a repetitive way, right. Maybe sometimes you are not able to draw our attention towards something when they are being shown to us once, right, but when it going to come again and again, then definitely it will draw your attention. So many a times you must have seen, you are passing by and lot of hoardings were there of same particular brand, and why they are being advertising throughout the passage, because they want you to draw your attention towards it. Maybe you were not able to draw it initially, but later on you could be able to see it. And again on the televisions, on the radio, we have seen again and again same kind of brand, same kind of advertisements are being shown to draw your attention. So repeated external stimulus are also likely to get noticed, and repetition increases the sensitivity, you can say the alertness to the stimulus will be more when things will be repeated again and again. The another important aspect here is the familiarity of the things. Okay, so this is something which we can again relate with it. We generally draw our attention to the things through which we are familiar to, right. So familiarity is also important thing, and in the contrast of it we have novelty as well, right. So it is important for you to understand familiarity as well as novelty are the two things which are of the different continuum, but they actually draw the attention of an individual. We are capable of seeing those things through which we are familiar of, right. They are able to draw our attention. Like for example, you went to a departmental store and you are able to see the same salesperson you have interacted the last time when you visited the same departmental store. You usually go to that same person because somehow you are able to relate with that person, right. You are able to explain your choices and your things to that person easily, because this person had the last communication with you. So this is how this principle of familiarity works, where we generally used to get the stimulus from the environment where we are known to our things at earlier stages. Whereas novelty refers to the something new, right, something which you haven't seen earlier, something new also draw our attention. Okay. So novel events and situations usually attract attention of an individual, and people who do things differently, such as sculpturing on rice granule. We have seen people, right, they are painting on the rice granules, preparing the smallest Bible, right. So these are the things which are very new, right. Nowadays it is not very new, but definitely something new or different, right, which is not in very common, which is something different from others, innovative and creative, then those things particularly draws the attention of an individual, and we would like to see what exactly is going here to understand the things better. In that series, we have another term called as contrast. So before we understand about this word contrast, you must have seen whenever a new building or a new any kind of new showroom has been come up, right, in your city or in your area, you usually see a different kind of colors they used to put, right, and especially the contrast would be very different from the regular buildings over there in particular row, right. So what does it means? Because it is actually drawing your attention towards it. So contrast is something which is also draw our attention towards the particular aspect of the thing, where you look different from each other, such as tall men in the crowd, or or a dwarf amongst the tall draw your attention. So something which is not similar, right, in a crowd of many people, whenever a person who is of different size or different physical features are different, then it usually draw our attention. Things which are not same nature, something in contrast, something in different, right? When the entire crowd is white and the only one man comes in a black suit, right? So definitely that person in a black suit will draw your attention more towards it. So contrast is also sometimes being used to draw the attention of an individual towards something. And then we have motion. So motion is being explained in the manner where moving things draw our attention more as compared to the things in static, right? So you can easily relate with this as well. You are on the railway platform, right? And if a train is standing on the station, you might not be able to notice it, but suddenly a train goes by 500 kilometer speeds, right? So your attention will be drawn toward it, right? You are sitting in a room and something moving around, you just draw your attention towards it. So things in motion draws more of our attention as compared to these things which are static in nature, right? So all these are the principles which are being used by the companies also for drawing the attention of their customers, right? How well they would be able to draw their attention towards their customers, toward their products, toward their services, right? So these are the aspects which are covered under the perceptual selectivity, and based on these things which have drawn our attention, we would be organizing them in our mind, we would be interpreting them, like what is our understanding of those things. It is also important, like our interpretation of things would be different from others, right? So this is something different which we are talking about, perceptual selectivity, and we need to understand here very clearly that two person receiving this similar or same set of stimuli, and their perception would be different, their action would be different, their thought process would be different, because every person has their own way of organizing it, and every person has an own way of interpreting it depending upon the difference in their attitude as well as the difference in their personality. Now coming to the internal factors in the perceptual selectivity, so far we have discussed about the external factors, like what are the external factors which are helping us in selecting the stimuli from the environment. At the same time, we have internal factors which is also going to have a considerable impact. So the very first is the self concept, right? And to understand this concept, let me help you to know that in Hindi we usually say jag kaisa mujh jaisa. So what does that means? Like we see things as we are, right? We usually interpret the environment as per our understanding of the things, right? So whatever we want to receive, whatever we want to believe, we usually see things accordingly, right? So the way a person look at the world is influenced by large extent his concept or the self image, right? If you have that kind of an consideration in your own personality, you definitely believe to have those things in others person as well, right? So it is considered as an internal form of getting attention and is largely based on individual psychology, right? So your psychology is based on your self image, about your own self concept, which is going to have a considerable impact on receiving or selecting the stimuli from the environment. So knowing oneself is easier to understand characteristics which they are likely to see in others, right? So people select only those aspects in others which matches their characteristic, okay? So if I like to have something in myself, I would like to definitely see those things in others, right? Or maybe if I am missing those things in my characteristics, so I also believe that the other person is also missing those things. So this is the all about self concept, and a person who has more of these more of the clarity about their own self concept will be able to understand the people better, right? So this is all in the mind of a person, how do they see others. The another important factor in this series is the belief, our belief system, right? So if you remember, in our previous session we have talked about the formation of a personality based on the culture, right? So culture plays a very, very important role in shaping up the personality of an individual, the kind of society norms which are being laid down, right? So what kind of belief system we have established in the personality of an individual based on our family members, based on the environment we have been brought up, and the culture we belongs to. So individual belief has a profound impact on his perception. We believe that if it is there, like it is our belief that we believe that God is there. Have we ever seen that God is there anywhere? No, it is only our belief that makes us, you know, have this kind of an understanding that we see the idols of the goddess and we believe that God is actually there. So you can understand what kind of things we are perceiving, right? So our belief system makes us understand that certain things are there in the environment, and on the basis of that our actions are going to be, right? So belief of a person has a considerable impact in the understanding of the stimulus from the environment. The another in the series is the expectations, right? So perception is influenced by the individual expectations. We need to understand that, and generally people opinion that the university rank holders are the sincere people, right? So we usually think that the toppers are the people who are able to make best in their lives, but generally that doesn't happen, right? It is just a perception which we are connotating to that particular thing, but it's not necessarily true, or whatever we are expecting or whatever our expectations and belief towards it would be right. So it's not that in reality, but as per our belief, as per our expectations, we believe that it is going to be true. Our inner needs, are also have a lot of impact on collecting the stimuli from the environment. As we all know, need of a person creates discomfort. It creates a tension in the mind of an individual, right? So when there is a discomfort and distress in your mind, you would be looking around, right, how you would be able to satisfy your need, how you will be able to overcome those needs and desire. So whatever the things are taking in the environment, you will always be in the mind of collecting that from where you could be able to fulfill that need. So accordingly you would be collecting the stimulus from the environment. Then again in this, a very important point is response disposition. So response disposition is again you can say a tendency of a person, right, where you perceive the stimuli which is somehow which is familiar or rather unfamiliar ones. So it is something again in contrast, you can say these collection of stimuli based on a response disposition of a person for things which are either known to you, either familiar to you, or they are unfamiliar to you. Okay, like for an example, people will select stimuli which are familiar to them, and in an experiment people have more orientation towards religions, right? So if we are talking about any religions, so we draw our attention generally to the aspects which are familiar to us, and we could be able to, if somebody is talking about your religion, if people are talking about something you are familiar with, so you generally get associated with those things, right, because you have the understanding of those things, right? And the things which are very unfamiliar to you, that also draws your attention sometimes because you want to know about those things. Okay, so response disposition is also working in the direction where you try to collect the information to the of the things which are familiar, or sometimes you want to draw your you want to collect the further informations regarding those unfamiliar things. Another important in this is known as response salience. Now response salience, how does it work? Let me help you with the understanding of an example. Suppose you are working in the organization, right, and there is some problem, right? So this problem is being looked out by the people with the different perspective. If you are working in the finance area or you are a person of finance background, then you might be looking to that problem from the financial perspective, right? The other person who belongs to the HR area, the person is looking to the problem from the HR perspective, right? So other person is looking to the problem from the marketing perspective. So as you can see, the person, right, whatever the interest you are having, whatever the background you are having, you are looking to that particular thing from that angle, right? So that is called as response salience, where a person has understanding of those things based on their knowledge, based on their based on their interest of that particular aspect. So here you can understand that the set of preconceived idea which are not determined by the familiarity of the situation, but by the mental makeup. So in the organization, the effectiveness of functioning a profit may be viewed by marketing people as the result of marketing strategy. So here you can see, in an organization, if an organization profit is increasing or organization growth is taking place, so everybody tries to take the credit from their perspective that it is all happening because of their efforts in the organization. Like marketing people are thinking that this is all because of the change in their marketing strategies, HR people thinking that it is all because of the good staff and trained people they are keeping in their organization who are giving their best, right. On the other hand, accounts people are taking care of, because of their management of funds, all this is happening. So people try to take the reward of everything whatever they are doing. They understand the situation, they perceive the situation based on their perception, and that is what is called as response salience. Then the next in this category is perceptual defense. This is important for us to understand, right. So perceptual defense is somewhat related to the concept which we have discussed previously, known as cognitive dissonance, if you remember. So cognitive dissonance is something where in our mentally, in our thinking process, we try to understand whether we should be doing it or we should not be doing it, like how to draw our attitude towards it. The example which we have discussed there was of smoking, right. A person knows that smoking is not good for their health, okay. So generally what they keep their understanding, like they would be quitting smoking very soon, right, or it is not going to impact their health much, they would be taking care of it, right, or they don't want to read out the instructions, or they just don't want to hear from anybody that it is going to have a bad impact on their health. That is what is called as perceptual defense, right. So as we know that people don't want to collect such kind of information, whatever wrong things they are doing, if they are drinking alcohol or if they are smoking or if they are eating unhealthy, right. So they try to somehow manipulate themselves, they just don't want to get that kind of an information which is going to affect their working or affect their doing of certain things, right. So they generally filter out those elements, they just avoid collecting that kind of stimuli from the environment which is going to affect their action based on that information, right. So like I said in the beginning, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are, right. We generally want to see things with our own perspective, right. Whatever we want to believe, whatever we want to hear, whatever we want to see, we only see those things in the environment, and not everybody is very attentive in collecting the stimuli. Some people are more aware of the things going around in the environment, and some people just don't want to collect many information and they just want to get involved in themselves, right. So we have two set of categories working in the organization, and from the organization point of view, it becomes very, very important for a manager to understand all these different set of people, what all information they are collecting, what all interpretations they are making about such things, and how would be their behavior. Now let us discuss about the perceptual organization. So far we have understood about perception, and we have also seen how this perceptual selectivity works on the basis of internal and external factors. Now the very important thing is, once we are selecting those stimulus from the environment, how are we going to organize it? The throughput process which we have discussed in between, right. So again, the very first principle which works here is called as figure ground principle, right. So figure ground principle is, you can say that a figure is something we called the important information we keep as a figure, and the least important information we keep it as a background. So you see that although we are very selective in receiving the stimulus from the environment, and even after receiving those stimulus from the environment, we again organize it, right. We are not just taking them and we are just not reacting on it, we organize the information in our mind, and this organization is based on this figure ground principle, where we are keeping the more important points as a figure, which we actually going to understand or interpret their meaning, and least important things we keep it in the background. So, this tendency to keep one or two stimuli as a main focus and other stimuli in the background, and that is concentrating on a particular stimulus, right. So, why we are doing so? Because we do not want our attention to be drawn in each and everything which we are collecting from the environment. We just want to focus on the main stimulus, right, in relation with the other things which we are collecting. So, the stimulus which we receive, the maximum attention is called the figure, like I said, the most important thing, and the other stimulus which are not of much use, we keep it as a background, which is called as ground. So, in textbook, printed letters are the figures, and the pages on which the letters are written would be taken as a ground, right. So, what is important for you are the figure, and the rest things would be considered as a ground, and this principle will help you in better organization of the your stimulus. Otherwise, it would be difficult for you to interpret it, right. So, you cannot interpret anything without organizing it. So, that is why this figure ground principle works under the perceptual organization. The another thing work under this consideration is grouping, right. We collect lot of things together, simultaneously from the environment, but now what we do in the organizing is the grouping of those things, right. So, grouping makes it easier for us to draw the attention out of it. So, what we generally do, we group the things of similar kinds, right, which are of same category. We group them on the basis of similarity and proximity, right. Similarity means the things which are of similar nature, right. Maybe if we are doing the calculation, then we can do the grouping on the basis of the gender, right. We can do the grouping on the basis of age. So, similar things we usually group together, and proximity refers to the nearness of things, right. So, if we are doing the calculation, then we need to understand what are the things which are near to each other. So, if we are talking about certain state, then the cities of those states which are near to each other, we try to group them together, right. So, this is how we draw the understanding of all the things which we are taking from the environment, and we are organizing them based on some category, and categories are being defined on the basis of similarity and proximity. So, once that grouping is being done, it is now easier for us to interpret. So, whatever we are discussing, it happens in very fractions of second. You see, you just see the things and you start acting on it. So, it is not that we are doing it in actual. Whatever we receive, our brain works on it, it organizes things very quickly, it draws interpretations very quickly, and we just start behaving accordingly, right. So, for example, the opinion of workers about the managements are grouped together irrespective of their individual differences, as workers appear to be similar in their general attitude, right. So, if the management has to hear the problems of the employees, then it is easy for them to have the understanding of the people in a group, right, rather than taking the individual opinion. And similarly, a group of stimuli that are closer together is seen as a one, right. Things which are near to each other are being considered to be together, so that we could be able to make out the right perceptions on it. Then the another important thing which we do in perceptual organization is the simplification of the thing, right. So, simplification refers to reducing down the complexity, right. What happens many a times it, whatever the informations we are collecting from the environment, sometimes they are very complex, and complexity makes it difficult for us to draw some interpretation or do some analysis on it. So, what we generally do is we try to simplify those things, we try to reduce their complexity and make them simple to understand, so that we could base our reaction on it. So, when people are overloaded with these stimuli, they try to simplify them by selecting the important one and ignoring the rest. So, you can relate this kind of an understanding with the figure ground principle as well, because there also we are keeping important thing as a figure, but rest of the thing we keep it as a background. But here in this simplification, we try to delete the complex aspects of it, we ignore them, right, and we just select the important things, which makes easier for the interpretation of those things. Like for example, there are many customers complaining regarding the particular product or services. The customer relationship manager tend to pay more attention to few customers who are more likely to cause damage to the brand image than the other customer, right. So, if many customers are complaining about the same thing and lot of changes are being required, then it becomes difficult for a person to incorporate all such changes. Rather, they draw their attention to the more important people who are going to ultimately affect the image of that particular company, right. So, this is what we do in the process of simplification. Moving further, the another aspect is known as close-up. So, this is all we are understanding how we organize the information which we are collecting based on internal and external factors, right. So, close-up refers to something where sometimes we collect the information from the environment which is not complete, which is incomplete, right. But to draw the meaning of those complete, incomplete information, we have to analyze it, we have to interpret it. So, how are we going to interpret that information? So, what we generally do is we close that particular thing from our own basis, right, on the basis of our past experience, on the basis of our own opinion, right. So, when the available information is inadequate, which is not complete, right, and tend to fill the gaps by themselves to create the meaningful information. So, this generally happens when person is keeping the complete things based on their understanding. Sometimes what happen, you must have seen in the environment also, some of the words are missing, some company names, letters are missing. So, the information is not adequate, right, this is an incomplete information, but you try to complete that information based on your understanding of the things, right, because that incomplete information is again going to create a disturbance in your mind. Okay. So, to overcome all those aspects based on your opinion and experience, whatever you have come up to, you try to complete that information and you organize those things to draw their meaning. Okay. So, this is also happens with the people, because sometimes you are not getting complete understanding of the things. Now, moving further, coming to the next part of the session where we are going to talk about the attribution theory. Now, attribution theory is also the theory which has been considered important with the understanding of the perception, because here also we have some kind of a judgment about people differently depending upon the meaning, the attributes to their behavior, right, how we are determining their individual's personality based on internal and externally, right. So, internal, we need to understand internal caused and externally caused. Okay. So, internally caused, whatever the behavior of an individual you are seeing or you are judging them, could be the reason of their individual aspects, right, or sometimes it could be based on the external aspects also. Like for example, in an organization, right, your co-worker came late, right. So, if a co-worker is coming late to the office, it could be maybe because of the internal reason of a person is lazy, right, person is not very disciplined kind of a nature, and it is his or her habit of coming late to the organization. So, this could be a reason because of the internal aspect, but there could be an external reason also. If a person is coming late to the organization, might be there is a traffic jam in the market, and because of that this person get delayed, right. So, we need to understand the behavior of an individual, why the behavior of an individual is so, it is because of the internal things or it is because of the external things, right. So, for this reason we would be understanding this theory. So, if you understand the determinations of attribution theory, you have to understand this chart where there is an individual behavior you can see, right. So, individual behavior which you are observing, and now you are going to interpret your observation based on distinctiveness, consensus and consistency. So, these are the three things which on the basis of which you are going to interpret that, and based on your interpretation you are going to understand the arbitration of the cause, right, whether it is because of internal reason or because of some external factors. So, let us understand it with the same example which we have discussed right now, where we are thinking that a person who has come late in the organization, right. So if a person is coming late to the organization and this kind of an interpretation is based on distinctiveness, that means a person is showing different behavior at different point of time. If a person is of the same kind of a nature where this person is coming late everywhere, right. So, if a person is coming late to every places and regularly this person has a habit of coming late, then definitely the distinctiveness is low, because this person is showing the same kind of behavior. But if the distinctiveness is high, that means this person is not late regularly, sometimes or the other at the other situations this person is showing this different kind of a behavior. So we need to understand if the distinctiveness is high, if there is a difference in this behavior, then this is because of the external factor or there is an external cause to it, right. But if distinctiveness is not there, the same pattern of coming late to the organization is being seen all the time, then the distinctiveness of this individual is low, and this is because of the internal reason, because this person has a habit of coming late to the organization. The second in the context is the consensus. Consensus refers to the group of individuals, right, or group of people having their opinion similar to that particular thing. So if the consensus is high, if group of people, right, if a group of people have the same consensus, right, coming from the same route, they all are coming late, right. So that means that it is because of the external factor, right, because everybody is taking that route to coming to the office and group of people are coming late. It is not only the individual person who has come late, and this is clearly showing that this is because of the external reason. But if the consensus is low, if the people or the group of people are not agreeing to that thing, they also have come from the same route, but they are not saying that there was a traffic and they reached office on time, then it is because of the internal factor, because that person might started late from their home and that is why this person reached late to the office, right. And then the last in the category is the consistency. Consistency refers to the continuation of those things, right. If a person is doing the same thing on regular basis, if a person is consistently coming late to the organization, then the person is having high internal cause, right. That means this person in itself is habit of coming late, but if the consistency is very low, once in a while, maybe once in a month or maybe 2 months or maybe 3 months, if this person is coming late, then the consistency is low, and it is maybe because of the external reason, because of some traffic or some problem in the route, that is why this person came late to the office. So I hope you are able to understand how this attribution theory works, where we need to understand the behavior of an individual. How are we going to judge those individuals, whether it is because of that internal factor or it is being caused because of the external aspect, right. Now coming to the common shortcuts in judging others, right. There are a lot of errors which we make in perception as we have understood the attribution theory. The very first is the selective perception, right. So selective perception based on again the person's own understanding of the thing. We don't want to receive everything, right. Why we are making wrong decision or why our behavior sometimes is not complete, because of our selective perception, right. So it means that it is the tendency of choosing or interpreting what one sees based on their own interest. If I want to see that particular thing, right, if it is of my interest area, then I will draw my attention toward it. If it is not, then I will not receive that information from the environment. And definitely incomplete information, incomplete aspect of the things will not give me the complete information, and I might not be able to draw my right behavior towards it. So sometimes in judging others we make mistake because of our perceptual selectivity. Another is the halo and the horn effect. Halo effect and the horn effect are the two effects which we need to understand. Halo effects refers to the positive general impression of an individual, right. Like for an example, I met somebody for the very first time, right, and the very first meeting went very well, right. I got an impression of this person where I draw this individual personality to be very positive, right, very, very pleasing, right. So this kind of an understanding will remain in my mind, and whatever the decision and whatever the perception I would be making about that person would be very positive all the time, because there is an halo effect in my mind, right, which we also called as first impression, and we always say that first impression would be our last impression. So how was your first impression? So in halo effect, our first impression would be positive, and based on that positive connotation, we are drawing always a positive image of that individual. Whereas in contrast to it, we have Horn effect. Horn effect refers to the negative, general impression about that individual, where in the first instance, we have understood something negative about that person. Maybe that person is not negative, but in the first meeting, there could be some kind of a situation or circumstances which created a negative impact in our mind, and that negative impact will be remaining in our mind for our further analysis of that individual, which might proved wrong later. Then the contrast effect could also be there. Contrast effect refers to the evaluation of a person characteristic that is affected by the comparison with others, right. So here generally people make the mistake where they are not keeping their understanding to the things, rather they are comparing things with others, right. We should understand this happens usually in the organization while measuring the performance of the people in the organization. Rather than focusing on that individual person, generally people compare an individual with the other other colleagues in the organization, how well they are performing, how good they are doing. So this comparison is not going to give the right analysis of the individual, and based on this you might be ending up doing the wrong evaluation. So this contrast effect is not the right way of judging. Then there are stereotyping, right. Stereotyping is, you can say, the mindset of an mindset of an individual, where we have certain set of pre-assumptions in our mind that females are not good in doing this, boys are not good in doing that. Okay, so this kind of things also have certain problems in perceiving those things. At the time of selection also, if we consider that this kind of work is not very female oriented, or females would not be able to do this job better than the male, so we generally ending up selecting male members rather than women employees, right. So such kind of stereotypes also create problems in understanding the situation. Then we have recency effect also, which impacts the perception of an individual, and this generally happens in the organization. Usually what happens, we remember the things which happens recently. So it has also become a habit of some people, as we know, some during the point of promotions time, or maybe at the time of increment. Generally what happens, some of the employees have a habit of showing up themselves to the bosses, right. They generally keep going to their offices for seeking work, or showing up their faces to show them that they are doing lot of work, right. And generally this happens at the time of increment taking place, right. And throughout the time they were not making their presence. So this kind of recency effect may be helping them to get those increments, because they are creating that kind of an impression on their bosses, where they could be able to remember their faces and remember their names to give them good promotions and increment. Projection is also one of them, where we are projecting our things, like perceptual errors occur when individual attributes their own thoughts, feelings, motives to others, assuming those others share the same internal state, right. You try to project your thing, right. Your self concept comes here, where you are projecting things with your own perspective, right, and you are you are trying to share the similar kind of interest and things with the person you are trying to analyze it. Then the another perception and its application in the organization, we have few points here to discuss, like employment interview will be getting affected, right, because of the perception. What happens generally at the time of interview, we are not able to perceive things correctly. We keep these kind of stereotypes, halo and the horn effect, the recency effect considerations in our mind, and because of this the interview employment interview generally gets impacted. So here the interviewers makes perceptual judgment that are often inaccurate, and different interviewers see different things in the same candidate. This is also we have discussed, because same candidate is sitting, but different people might have different view about that person, because they all are seeing this person in a different understanding, right. So employment interview is an important input into the hiring decision, and this perceptual factors influence a lot while selecting the right candidate in the organization. So whom you are ending up selecting based not only on the person, but also based on the selector who is interviewing them, what are the things they are perceiving and judging in them at the time of interview. This perception also have lot of considerable impact on the performance appraisal, right. Like we have discussed, recency effect. The employees who are showing up themselves during the time of increment, during the time of promotion, definitely they are creating some kind of an impact in the mind of their bosses, right, and they might be getting good performance appraisal during that point of time. So employee performance appraisal is very much dependent upon the perceptual process based on your understanding of your boss, how do they perceive you, right, what is their understanding of your work, what is the understanding of your performance in their eyes is also going to impact the performance appraisal of that individual. Then assessing level of efforts, right, as we all know in organization people try to put their efforts, right, and generally the genuine people who are showing up their 100% efforts in doing things, but it depends upon their bosses, it depends upon the leaders, right, how well they are assessing their efforts, how much consideration they are giving up on their efforts. Sometimes it happens that people are putting up their 100%, but they are not able to reach out to the outcome, right, the results are not visible. But we need to understand not always result matter, definitely results needs to be there, outcome needs to be there, but we should also appreciate people if they are showing up their efforts. Okay, so efforts of the individuals might also get affected if your perception is only on the basis of the outcome, if your perception is only on the basis of the results they are drawing on it. Assessing loyalty is also going to get impacted based on the perception, right, where you are not able to make out the right judgment whether the employee is loyal to the organization or not, right. So again we can see things as we are, if we are loyal to the organization, if we are seeing with that perspective, we might assume the other person to be loyal, but if we are not loyal to the organization, we consider the other person also not be loyal towards the organization. Now we have these implication of perception on the performance as well as satisfaction. If the perception going to affect the understanding of an individual, definitely it will reduce the productivity, it will influence the productivity of the organization. Your absenteeism and turnover rate will be more if your perception towards your peoples are not correct, and this will also lead to job dissatisfaction, right. People will not be happy with their job, because ultimately if their efforts and their aspects are not being perceived in the correct manner, then there will be an impact on it. So coming to the summarization of this session, we can say that perception is very, very important for us to understand, because ultimately if we want to have a right set of people and if we want to set their right behavior in the organization, we need to make them understand to see things correctly, because if the interpretation of the things would go wrong, if the organization of the aspect will go wrong in their mind, then their attitude, their behavior and action will be wrong, right. As per the understanding of this perception, we need to know how to assess the things correctly, how we can make them learn better, how we can bring the best in that particular individual to assess those things correctly and make out the right decision and right choices. So these are the references from where the session inputs have been taken. I hope all of you have enjoyed the session and learned a lot. Thank you everyone.